Hello everyone, welcome to your new favorite cricket fan channel called Willow and Leather. This is Shravan joining you again today. Just wanted to do a quick recap of the thriller, the nail-biting encounter between Kolkata Knight Riders and Royal Challengers Bengaluru. Kolkata Knight Riders inching their way to victory there by the barest of margins, eventually winning the competition or the game by one single run. That's how close the game was, and we'll do a quick deep dive into it, obviously. But if you're an RCB fan, the heartbreak kind of continues. But there were a lot more positives in this game, especially given some of the lackluster performances that the team has put up in the last few games. I think there was there were a lot of positive signs for the team and a lot of good things to kind of build upon. But unfortunately, this performance kind of comes a little late in the tournament for us as RCB. But again, the result obviously not favoring us either. So another 2 points lost. That makes it 7 losses out of 8 games for RCB, and the team continues to be firmly planted at the bottom of the table, unfortunately. But let's do a quick recap of how the game went down. Basically, as I said, a nail biter. Kolkata, losing the toss and being put into bat first by Faf du Plessis, which I thought was a good call, especially given it's a day game, and we've traditionally seen in Kolkata during those day matches in the first innings, because of the sun, there's a lot more dryness on the wicket, and the ball kind of grips and turns a little bit more than the second innings, where there's a little bit of a coolness that settles in, and the pitch kind of smoothens out a little bit, and ball kind of skids through a little bit more. So I think in hindsight, I think it was still a very good call by du Plessis to basically win the toss and elect to bowl first. Bowling wise, a mixed bag really in terms of the power play performance and the overall bowling performance as a whole. But at least it was a positive sign that the bowling attack came out with a few plans in place for a couple of the batsmen, especially Sunil Narine right at the top. Now, we've all seen how destructive he's been this tournament, scoring a century in the previous game against Rajasthan Royals, who have a fairly decent bowling attack, mind you. And even before that, the first round of encounter against RCB at the Chinnaswamy Stadium, Narayan went berserk in that game as well. So it was kind of nice that the RCB team kind of had a plan that they put in place for him, kind of going Yorker length from ball one, wide Yorkers or slower Yorkers. So they were really not giving him enough of an opportunity to get under the ball and clear it over the infield. So they definitely did a good amount of homework on Narayan, and definitely did well to navigate that threat. Unfortunately, didn't look like the preparation was completed for the other opening batsman, Phil Salt, who absolutely took the team off to a flyer, and took particular liking to Lockie Ferguson. I think it was the fifth over, if I'm not mistaken, but absolutely decimated him and took him for like 28 runs it was in that particular over, which really tilted the scales in KKR's favor, not just for the power play, but that really set up the platform for the rest of the game for them as well. KKR ended up finishing the power play with 75 runs on the board, which is quite a big number. But again, this season just happens to be so much in favor of the batsman that 75 also seems like a fairly par score at this point, which is kind of sad to see. But at least from RCB's point of view, the good thing was that they were at least able to pick up wickets, which has lacked in their previous performances. So despite conceding 75 runs, they still managed to pick up 3 key wickets in there, both the openers and Ankrish Raghuvanshi as well. So exceptional catch from Cameron Green to get rid of Raghuvanshi. Probably the only player in the tournament who could have got a hand on it. High ball almost sailing over his head, and he puts out the dive, or rather reaches up and puts on the dive, and takes the catch. So all in all, a mixed bag kind of a power play performance from RCB, but it was at least a little bit more heartening to see that they had some sort of a plan in place. Again, bowling someone like Lockie Ferguson in the power play, still a questionable decision, but I think Phil Salt just got the better of him today, so no real complaints there, I guess. But post the power play, I think the team did exceptionally well to curb things with respect to the run flow. Once guys like Shreyas Iyer and Venkatesh Iyer got in, Venkatesh Iyer got a few away, but we picked up his wicket fairly quickly after that as well. So we kind of kept the run rate in check, and it was very nice to see Karan Sharma bowling well. First of all, it was very nice to see Karan Sharma getting a chance to play today. So that was really heartening. After the first game that we played at Chepauk, this was the first time that we were seeing him after like a gap of 6 games in between. So it was really good that he came to the party, and he bowled exceptionally well actually, going for about 8.5 runs economy. During that middle over phase was really good. Also, a pretty good bowling effort was from Cameron Green as well. So we were able to squeeze out full quota of 4 overs from him, and he was able to pick up a couple of wickets and conceded, I think it was 35 runs or whatever. So still a below 9 economy, which was exceptionally good given the circumstances and the start that KKR got off to as well. One thing that was very interesting to see today was the level of involvement of Virat Kohli while setting the field or talking to the bowlers and some of the decision making there. He was very, very involved. He's usually obviously very engaged and involved and very active on the field. But today it just seemed like he was a lot more involved in terms of some of the field settings and the decision making as well. Which I think is probably a conscious decision that the team has made to kind of bring him more into the picture with respect to some of his leadership skills. Now, if folks remember, in one of the post-match interviews, I think it was after the first 3 or 4 games, when they were talking to Kohli and they were talking about some of the decision making or some of the strategies, etc. Kohli had very clearly mentioned that he doesn't get involved in those things these days anymore. Which kind of told me that he was kind of very, hands off of the whole decision-making process. But looks like they, might have made a collective decision as a leadership group to kind of give Virat Kohli a little bit of freedom to be involved in these things as well, which is, I think, a nice thing to see. And obviously, we're past the halfway mark of the tournament now, so I think they've made a conscious decision, just given where we are, to kind of see how Virat Kohli does driving a few things on the field as well. And I think he did pretty well, and I feel like probably, the selection of the playing 11 was kind of influenced by him as well, because it had a very Virat Kohli kind of a stamp on it. It was nice to see the likes of Cameron Green coming back into the fold as well. I thought this was a good surface for him to not only get some bowling in, but also contribute with the bat. Unfortunately, didn't come off with the bat today, but we'll get to that later. But basically, just the kind of playing 11 that was selected, I think this was probably RCB's most stable looking playing 11 that we had put together, maybe after the first couple of games. Once things started going sideways and people were just not clicking in place, I think this was probably the best combination that we could have put out onto the field, especially on a surface like the Eden Gardens. So I feel like there was probably a lot more involvement and a lot of thinking behind the scenes, and a lot of effort went into planning for this particular game to try and turn things around. So that was definitely something heartening to see. And also, it was very nice to see the bowling kind of really curtail even the likes of Andre Russell through the middle and the later part of the innings there. Shreyas Iyer, yes, he did get a 50, and he kind of hit a few shots towards the end to get to that 50 before holding out in the deep, du Plessis taking an exceptional catch. But it felt like Shreyas Iyer wasn't really in the best of rhythm either. He's not been in the best of rhythm for this entire tournament, and this was his first 50 of the season. So it just felt like RCB had put on some sense of some semblance of breaks on the scoring in the middle overs. But towards the end, Ramandeep coming in and scoring a 9-ball 24, that I think was the game changer eventually. I think the team had done very well to keep Andre Russell in check, and although Russell batted through till the end, he was never really able to unleash himself, and I think he finished with like a score of 27 from 20 balls or whatever it was, which was way below his par average or the strike rate that he usually bats with. So that way we did a good job, but Ramandeep kind of got a few blows away towards the end, which kind of really pushed that score, KKR score, from about 210 to about 222, right? So I think that 15 10-15 run difference was, I think, the crucial part in the end. Again, Mohammad Siraj in the second last over went for 2 sixes, but then came back strongly after that. Yash Dayal, unfortunately, in that last over that he bowled, was all over the place. A wide four, a couple more boundaries, and all of that. So, yeah, death bowling is obviously a concern. We've kind of talked about this in some of my other previous videos as well. But, still, I think at the end, KKR posting 222, which I thought was probably 10 runs over par. And RCB definitely had the batting depth today to try and really make a game out of this, and they did it. Right, so coming out to bat, Kohli just being his usual aggressive self, taking on the Pacers. Had a good over against Mitchell Stark as well, and looks like it looked at that point that RCB was going to put up another really strong show in the power play at least, and lay the foundation for the others to come in. And just at that moment, Virat Kohli getting out to the slower one from Harshit Rana. We'll talk about the controversy around that towards the end as well, but obviously the key wicket of Virat Kohli, who's the man in form, and Faf du Plessis getting out very quickly after that as well. And he's the only other guy in the top order who's kind of found his way back into some sense of form with the last couple of innings that he's played. Both of them getting out, the two senior pros in the team at the top of the order getting out. And all of a sudden you're sitting there wondering, yeah, the brittle middle order is exposed again. There's only DK at the end who can come and kind of provide some solid finish, maybe. But we needed to take the game to that point, take it deep enough for someone like DK to be influential, I guess. So you're just trying to see how things go at that point. Will the middle order kind of break again? But in step the young ones like Will Jacks and Rajat Patidar, and they put on an absolute fantastic partnership to not just bring RCB back into the game, but actually put RCB in the driving seat at that point. I think they got like a 110 run partnership or something close to that in double quick time. Will Jacks, he kind of took his time initially with a few clean shots, ground shots, and quick running between the wickets, and then he took on the medium pacers, belting like 2 or 3 sixes in an over, so really upped the scoring at that point. And he kind of settled in, and as the spinners came on, Rajat Patidar took the attack to the spinners. So the trio of Varun Chakravarti, Sunil Narayan, and Suyash Sharma, who was like the impact player for KKR. All three of them were targeted, and Rajat Patidar did exceptionally well, particularly against Suyash, but also against Sunil Narayan. There was this phase where Sunil Narayan, I think, had finished 2 overs with 9 runs to his name, I guess. So, it looked like Narayan would have another one of those economical days, but in that third over that Sunil Narayan bowled, Rajat Patidar took him for 2 sixes, which I think was an absolute change in the mindset and the momentum of the game, and it really swung things in RCB's favor at that point of time. Now, the last throw of the dice at that point was for Shreyas Iyer to go to Andre Russell, who has been an exceptionally improved bowler over the last couple of seasons now. He is taking his bowling very seriously. He's doing all that he can to keep his body fit so that he's able to bowl 4 overs consistently for the team as well. And that focus on his fitness is showing in his bowling performances too. And he is such a wily bowler, realizing that there is a little bit of help in the pitch when it comes to slower balls. The ball tends to grip and hold on the surface typically here. So he mixed it up very well, and as soon as he came on, all I was thinking is, let's just please get through this 1 over and not, give him any wickets. It doesn't matter if he doesn't go for too many runs, but all we needed to do was try and survive that 1 over, and we could probably get a feel of how he's bowling and get a little bit more comfortable. But Will Jacks decided to take him on the very first ball, and Barest giving a catch at long on, and 2 or 3 balls later, Rajat Patidar again trying to I think he was trying to go over mid-wicket again, I guess, but it was a slower ball, which I think Patidar didn't read very well and took the leading edge and went straight up to be caught at point. So 2 wickets in that over, and both the set batsmen who had built all of that momentum. So suddenly the whole complexion of the game changes again. Now you're suddenly looking at 2 new batters at the crease, and you're looking at still a required run rate of close to 10 runs and over, or 10 and a half and over. So suddenly things seem a little dicey again. Right. So at this point, you have Suyash Prabhudesai, who was the impact player, and it was his first outing for the team this season. Again, something that I feel probably Virat Kohli had an input on, trying to bring in someone like a Prabhudesai instead of Anuj Rawat, who's been tried and he's been successful on and off, but over the last 3 or 4 games, he's not really been able to make an impact with the bat. So it was nice to see someone like Suyash Prabhudesai getting a go this time around. So he came into the middle, quickly followed by Cameron Green, or rather Cameron Green and then Suyash Prabhudesai. So the two of them are there. So you know what the situation is. 2 new batsmen. You were probably better off trying to make sure that you don't lose any more wickets in the next couple of overs, especially because the over right after Andre Russell's over was that of Sunil Narine, and all the team had to do, all these 2 batters had to do at that time was probably just look for a few singles here and there and try and see if they can get an odd boundary away. But it's the change in the approach. I guess it's a modern way of batting now, especially with the impact player rule. We had 8 batters in our lineup today. So I think Cam Green felt like he had the luxury of going after Narayan again. He did get one 6 away. And at least at that point, I think he should have been smart enough to just rotate the strike and make it a 9 or a 10 run over without really trying to go for glory again and trying to, take another ball and attack it again. But unfortunately, poor decision making from Cameron Green. I think that wicket was probably the biggest one in terms of deciding the eventual result of the game. Had Cameron Green kind of stuck around and just played out that over, because at the end of the day, Sunil Narine is Sunil Narine because of how good he is and how well he can come back, especially after being hit for a boundary. Very rarely do you see Sunil Narine going for 3 sixes in his spell, which is what happened today, but he was smart enough and he came back and picked up that all-important wicket of Cameron Green at that point, immediately followed by Mahipal Lomror in the same over as well. So suddenly, from what was, can't remember the exact score, but I think it was like some 130 or whatever it was, at the loss of 2 wickets. Yeah, I think it was 137 for 2. Suddenly you're looking at 155 for 6 within a span of 2 overs. So at the end of 11 overs, we were 2 down, and at the end of 13 overs, we were 6 down, 4 wickets in 2 overs. So that bunch of wickets in the middle was eventually, the decider for this game. When you lose 4 wickets in such close interval, especially when the required run rate is still over 10 and over, and you still have a good 6-7 overs to play out, it's never going to be an easy task. So eventually we were left with Suyash Prabhudesai on one end and Dinesh Karthik coming in, having to dig the team out of another hole, not the first time this season. And I think they kind of batted fairly well through that period where they needed some sense of rebuilding, while still kind of trying to, stay as close with the required run rate as possible, but obviously, not going for too many glory shots, but just trying to stay there or thereabouts and then try and, take it deep and then finish it off. And I think they did fairly well until I think it was the 17th over that Varun Chakravarti came on, and Suyash Prabhudesai was on strike, and he tried, he got one boundary away, but he wasn't able to connect any more hits in that over. And I think that over, especially with Suyash Prabhudesai on strike, I think he had the license to go after that particular over, because against the faster bowlers, Dinesh Karthik is a lot more comfortable as well. So we knew that we had guys like Harshit Rana, Andre Russell and Mitchell Stark to bowl those overs after Chakravarti. So I think it was a golden opportunity for Suyash Prabhudesai to really get another another one or two hits away in that over, but unfortunately that didn't come off, and I think that put a little bit of that extra pressure on Dinesh Karthik in the overs that followed. He did try his best, and once Suyash Prabhudesai fell to Andre Russell, I think he or I think Suyash Prabhudesai fell to Harshit Rana to another slower one. And this is where KKR were so smart with their bowling. I think both Andre Russell and Harshit Rana, the two successful bowlers in that attack today, both of them used the change of pace variety so well and so effectively on a surface like this, and that was the key difference there. But once Suyash Prabhudesai fell, you felt like the game was pretty much all resting on Dinesh Karthik's shoulders at this point, and he probably felt the same too, because in the 19th over, he outright refused to take a couple of singles and didn't want to give the strike to Karan Sharma, whom, I mean, to be honest, not a lot of us have seen him bat a lot. So I think at that point of time, DK felt like it was the right move to try and keep the strike and get as many runs as possible himself, which I think was the right decision at that point of time. But unfortunately, the last ball of that 19th over, another slower bouncer, and Dinesh Karthik, all he could do was basically just glove it high up in the air. Or rather got the toe end of the bat, in fact, trying to hit it over fine leg. But all he could do was just sky it, and Phil Salt did a good job of keeping his cool and taking that catch coolly. Right, so at that point, 21 runs needed, 2 wickets in hand. Dinesh Karthik is gone as well. So pretty much, I think everyone would have felt that the game is done and dusted. So Karan Sharma is on strike, Mohammad Siraj is on the non-strikers end, and Mitchell Starc comes on to bowl. And for whatever strange reason, Mitchell Starc just kept feeding wide good length / Yorkers to Karan Sharma with all of the offside fielders inside the circle, which was such a strange decision, or either it was a poor decision making or just not good execution. Probably he was aiming for a better Yorker, but anyway, he didn't get his line or length right in the first few balls of that over, and Karan Sharma hit the first ball of that over for a 6, so suddenly it's like 15 required from 5. So as fans and as viewers watching the game, we were like, hello, there's something, there's some life left in this game still. And then the next ball, he gets beaten, but they go up for an appeal. Snicko comes on, and looks like there's an edge on it. There is an edge, but the one angle that they had available for the one angle that they showed for the catch being collected by Phil Salt kind of was 50-50. So the third umpire went with the decision of giving him not out, just because it looked like the ball had hit the ground before landing in the keeper's gloves. So anyway, you're down to 15 from 4, and Mitch Starc continues bowling the same wide outside off, and Karan Sharma hits 2 back-to-back sixes. Amazing shot. So he's basically hit 3 sixes of the first 4 balls of the over, and suddenly RCB need 3 runs from 2 balls, or 2 runs to tie, in fact. And you would think you wouldn't be, at fault to, at that point at least, hope that, we should probably be able to get over the line if you're an RCB fan. But unfortunately for Karan Sharma, the next ball, and I think that was probably the better ball in that over, where he just came on and tried to go for the Yorker, which eventually ended up being a very low full toss, and sometimes those low full tosses are probably the most difficult ones to get away. And unfortunately for Karan Sharma, all he could do was just hit it right back towards Mitchell Starc, who in his follow through was able to put in the dive and collect that catch. So very unfortunate dismissal for Karan Sharma. I was watching the game, and at the beginning of the over, Harsha Bhogle was, doing the commentary, and he was saying, right, can Karan Sharma become a part of RCB folklore here by, getting these 21 runs? And he was so close to doing it. I think that innings will still be remembered for many years to come. But just the fact that, probably everyone had resigned to the fact that it was going to be an easy win for KKR in that final over, but he just showed that he has some quality with the bat as well. Yes, not the best of line and length from Mitchell Stark in that last over, but still to be able to hit 3 sixes over backward point or over covers, that was some exceptional hitting from Karan Sharma. But absolute heartbreak for him to be getting out in that fashion on the second last delivery. And in walks Lockie Ferguson with 3 runs still required off 2 balls, and Mitchell Stark just deciding to bowl good line and length, and Ferguson gets bat on ball and hits it towards the deep, but unfortunately he hits it too well. So although Siraj was kind of scampering from the non-striker's end, Lockie Ferguson just didn't really have enough time to get to the non-striker's end, turn back, and then make his way back to the batting side. The throw from the deep wasn't the best. It was a long way away from the wicket keeper, a long way away, and didn't have enough power as well. But Phil Salt, again, keeping his cool, trying to go closer to the ball to avoid the delay in the ball getting to him. He took a step closer to the ball, collected it cleanly, then turned around and put in the dive to break the stumps. And despite all of this taking as much time as it did, Lockie Ferguson was still probably a half a yard short. Probably should have put in a dive, irrespective of how far out he was. I think it definitely warranted a dive. Again, just not the best presence of mind in that given moment. He is a tail-ender, so you can forgive him for not really applying himself at that point of time. But again, KKR keeping their cool and coming away with 2 more valuable points for them, which plants them very firmly in that top 2 for the time being. And the agony continues for RCB, unfortunately. 1 win out of 8 games now, 7 losses in a row, or was it 6 losses in a row? Sorry. But as I said, this one doesn't really hurt me as much, primarily because one, yes, mathematically this game probably really puts us out of contention for top 4, but realistically, just given the form that we've been in, it's not like we've lost any close games previously. So I definitely thought it was nothing short of a miracle if we could really qualify from this point onwards. So I had pretty much given up on this season already, unfortunately. But so having done that, I think I was able to appreciate some of the changes and the level of intensity and the commitment from the team members today. So that was definitely a positive for me. But yeah, all in all, obviously RCB still at the bottom of the table. Nothing much changes for them, unfortunately, in terms of results. But the performance was definitely good. So couple of things that I definitely wanted to touch upon before we wrap this one up was all the controversy around some of the umpiring decisions, and a couple of other decisions which I thought didn't really get highlighted, and it felt like they kind of snuck under the radar. But as I was watching the game live, I was actually very furious with a couple of things that happened as well. So again, there could be certain things with the technology which we don't get to see on the screen, which probably the third umpires see or have more data available. But as a viewer, when you're watching it, you just feel like you're not getting enough information for some of these umpiring decisions, right? So let's start with the big one. Obviously, Virat Kohli, Harshit Rana trying to bowl a slower one. I think didn't necessarily go where he was intending it to go, I guess, but turned out to be a nice loopy beamer to begin with, and literally kind of meets Virat Kohli close to his stomach or the abdomen area, I guess. And initially, as soon as that happened, my first instinct was to think that yes, it should be a no ball. Right, just given that at the point of contact, it is well above his waistline. Now, obviously, one thing that wasn't necessarily visible from the front on view was the fact that Virat Kohli was already standing one step out of his crease while facing up to play that ball. It wasn't like he moved down the ground to hit that, right? He kind of was in his position, but obviously because it was a fuller ball, he was trying to reach out to hit it. But the fact that he was already one step outside, that I think was a big difference, right? Because when you saw the ball tracking come through, obviously because it's the slower one, the slower ones tend to obviously dip more. than the faster ones, right? So if it was a normal on-pace delivery, if that's the point of contact where he's meeting, there is no way that the ball would have been below waist height when it crosses the popping crease. But unfortunately, because it was a slow, loopy one, the rule obviously is very clear that we have to see what's the height of the ball at the popping crease line, and if that is above or below the batsman's waistline when he is standing upright. Now, how they measure these batsmen standing upright, that's another question altogether, because I've seen a couple of matches previously where they look at the footage of a batsman standing upright before they take guard, and they use that as a reference line in front of the advertising board when you're looking at it from the side on angle. So they mark that as a point of reference, and then they see, once the ball is being delivered, where the ball is lining up or ending up. So that is something that they've done previously. So I don't know if they necessarily have like measurements of every single batsman's distance from ground to the waist. But in any way, I think Virat Kohli's ball definitely dipping. Yes, in the spur of the moment, looked like it was a no ball, especially because the point of contact was so high on the body. And naturally, I think just at that point of time as a batsman, I think Virat Kohli was flustered and frustrated, and I think being the captain who wanted to support a senior player, I think Faf also was kind of involved in that argument with the umpires. But at the end of the day, I think there shouldn't be any doubt that it was a legal delivery. Now, people might have different opinions on whether those kind of balls should be legal or not, and instead of looking at the popping crease, should we just look at the height at the point of impact, no matter where the batsman is standing, and make a call based on that. That is an argument for a different day. But as the rules stand today, it was a very fair and legal delivery. And yes, Kohli obviously is frustrated, and I am more frustrated, and I sympathize with him more as an RCB fan and as a Virat Kohli fan as well. But it's just one of those things where you can be angry about it, you can be frustrated about it, but unfortunately it doesn't change the rule or the law, right? So it was a legitimate dismissal. So that was one. The other one, as I was previously mentioning, right, the one edge that Mitchell Starc got off of Karan Sharma's bat in that last over, and there was a lot of controversy around whether the ball carried to the keeper Phil Salt or not, and you could see Phil Salt being very upset about it after the decision was given as well, when he was given not out, because they only looked at one angle, right? They just looked at the front on angle, and no matter how many front on angles you see of these kind of close catches, when you're looking at it in slow motion, when you're looking at it with a zoomed lens, it is very, very easy to feel like the ball is hitting the ground. I think that's just the nature of the motion of the ball and the frame rate or whatever it is at which the cameras are able to capture it. So even in ultra slow motion, it always looks like the ball is kind of landing there, even if the fielder has his fingers underneath the ball. So it is very, very important for us to be able to have those side-on angles for some of these deliveries. For whatever reason, they did not look at the other angle, side-on angles, or they didn't have those side-on angles available to them. But all in all, I think that was definitely a very controversial call, another controversial call from the umpires in that sense. Right, the first one, Virat Kohli's decision, I think they got it spot on. This one, I'm not 100% sure, but at least just given, if they didn't have the side-on angle available, then they probably, just went based on what they saw in the front-on vision, and just based on that, it definitely looked like it might have hit the ground first. But again, we've seen this happen multiple times where it looks like the ball has hit the ground, whereas the catchers usually have their fingers underneath it. So it's very important to get that side on to see if the ball lands just before their fingertips or if it actually lands inside their fingers. So that, I think, was a rough, I guess the lack of technology there, or if they didn't have the technology, that's unfortunate. But if they did, then I think that's just poor judgment to not really use those side-on angles. All right, so that was the second one. A couple more that I thought were very weird, which I think went under the radar. One was when Andre Russell was batting. I think it was Yash Dayal who bowled a bouncer. And it looked like it might have gone over the batsman's head. And it definitely could have been a wide. And I think initially they did not give it a wide, and I think Andre Russell reviewed it, and post review they declared it as a wide. Yes, the ball was probably higher than his head height. But what really bothered me was the process with which they went through that review as a third umpire. Because in this particular situation, in this particular case, they never showed us a frame where Andre Russell is standing upright. Right? If anyone's observed Andre Russell's batting stance, he bends over so much that it's very hard to make a good judgment of what his standing height is. And even when he's not, bending over and he's not really ready to bat, even when he just gets into the position to bat, his knees are flexing, his knees are bent. Right, so it's not a very accurate representation of his upright height, and for whatever reason they didn't roll the camera back enough to get a shot of him where he's standing upright before he takes guard. Right, every batsman at the end of every single delivery kind of walks away from their crease, checks out the field or whatever, and then comes back and gets into their batting stance. For some strange reason, the third umpire didn't look at the whole sequence and didn't go back enough before he takes the guard to actually figure out what his standing height was. And then this ball comes through, and at the point, and that was the other thing. So instead of, in this particular case, Andre Russell, we all see how deep in the crease he stands. And this time around, when they were actually doing the freeze frame to see where the ball's height was, instead of stopping the shot at when the ball is crossing the popping crease, instead they take a pause at the point where the ball is crossing Andre Russell, and Andre Russell obviously is further deeper in the crease, which means the ball is obviously going further up, right? So that was the other controversial piece as well. So basically they didn't judge Andre Russell's height or his standing height initially to begin with, and secondly they measured the ball passing, or they measured the height of the ball not at the point of the popping crease, but at the point where Andre Russell was standing, which was further behind, deeper in the crease, which means the ball was still going further up, and would have been further up than it would have been at the popping crease. Now again, the height was probably still further up, and it would have probably still been called a wide if they had still followed all these measures. But all I'm trying to say is that this with this bouncer rule, the height measuring, it just doesn't seem like it's being done consistently in the same way by every single umpire in every single situation. Now, when it is Virat Kohli's dismissal, obviously they're looking at the impact at the popping crease, but when it's Andre Russell, instead of looking at the popping crease, they're looking at it when it's meeting him at that height. So again, that I think was a very interesting call, which I think went under the radar. Commentators didn't really talk about it either. So that I think was a little infuriating for me. The one other thing that I noticed was when Suyash Prabhudesai was batting in that 16th over against Varun Chakravarti. Chakravarti bowled an exceptional over, but there was this one shorter, quicker one that he bowled, and it ended up just outside leg. And Suyash Prabhudesai was able to swivel and hit it over square leg or backward square. And from the real live footage and the replay that they showed, it looked very clearly that the ball was going over the fence or over the ropes, right? And they just paused for a couple of seconds, and the umpire eventually signaled it as a 4 instead of a 6. But I tried to look at that clip again, that ball in real-time speed, and the one replay that followed afterwards as well. And in both those instances, it looked like the ball had cleared the field. It looked like it had just gone over the boundary directly. Again, something that went under the radar. Nobody brought this up. The commentators didn't bring it up either. Again, there could be better visuals that were available to the third umpire but weren't necessarily shown to us as viewers, which again I feel is another piece of inconsistency there, where some of these crunch things aren't necessarily shown in full detail, and they just seem to kind of move past it very quickly, right? Signaled as a 4, but I am yet to see any concrete proof that was actually a 4 and it landed before the boundary ropes instead of landing after it. So yeah, a few different controversial calls in the game. Again, not to sound like a sore loser, because like I said, I've kind of given up on the season anyway, so the results don't really matter, to be honest. But at least there needs to be some level of consistency in how some of these decisions are made. For some of the decisions, the third umpire and the umpiring team basically takes minutes on hand to make decisions, even when the full data is available, and even sometimes when it's blatantly obvious that there might not be any bat or gloves involved, they'll still try and bring up the ultra edge and all of this and waste a lot of time. And then they try and and then there are instances where there might be something there to do some further review or further analysis, and then they just decide to breeze through it for whatever reason. So there has been definitely a lot of inconsistency with respect to the umpiring standards overall, and I think that kind of showed up multiple times in today's game particularly. So I'm definitely a little annoyed by that as a fan, and again, not just as an RCB supporter, right, but as a neutral spectator. You obviously don't want games to be decided by these kind of margins, right? So in a game where the teams are differentiated by one single run, every single call like this makes a difference, right? I mean, even the Karan Sharma caught behind appeal as well. If we had a better angle, and if the catch looked clean from the side on view, then KKR could have won more comprehensively as well. So I'm not just saying it from an RCB point of view, but I'm just saying as a neutral spectator, I think all we want to see is the right calls being made at the end of the day. And I think the process, especially that some of these calls are being done based upon, are just not consistent as of right now. So something for the broadcasters and the governing council and the match referees to look into, I guess. But hey, I'm just a random guy on YouTube ranting about it, so not like any of those guys are listening right now. But for the people who are listening, thank you so much for tuning in again. This is Shravan on Willow and Leather. Thank you so much for all the support and all the offline comments that folks have been sharing with me. I'd really appreciate it if you can share this video with other people. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do subscribe. Really hoping to reach out to more and more people with this content. Any cricket enthusiasts that you know about, please do share this channel with them. Subscribe to this channel, turn on your notifications as well, so you're notified as and when I drop these videos. But once again, thank you for all your support. Please do keep those thoughts and comments coming. Absolutely loving doing these videos and doing my in-depth analysis of some of the games and the teams and all of that. It's been a great experience for me, and I'd love to continue doing that a lot more as well. Right? Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.